Couple years ago, my bank account had $412 in it. Today it has 7 figures. I didn't get a raise that changed my life, and I didn't get lucky in the stock market. I followed one strategy, the same one I'm about to hand you in the next 8 minutes. The thing is, most people believe the goal is becoming a millionaire, but experienced investors know that your first $100,000 changes everything. Because once you hit 100K, your finances begin to grow like never before. By the end of this video, I'll tell you my simple strategy of how I hit my first 100,000 so you can begin your own journey today. Let's get into it. Listen, if you've ever Googled how to save 100K at 2 in the morning and felt like the answer was just earn more money, then I can definitely relate. But the truth is, reaching your first $100,000 isn't just about earning a massive salary. In fact, thousands of ordinary people earning low to average incomes cross that milestone every single year, while others making twice as much remain stuck living paycheck to paycheck. The difference isn't luck, it isn't intelligence, and it definitely isn't chasing the latest get-rich-quick trend on social media. It's a strategy. A simple strategy that compounds over time until one day you wake up and your money is finally working harder than you are. Money starts creating more money. That's when everything shifts from feeling impossible to becoming automatic. Before anyone can save $100,000, they need to pay their future self first. This is where most people get stuck because they haven't mastered this. Psychologists call this principle of adaptation. The framework I used is a modified version of the well-known 50-30-20 rule. 50% of my take-home pay went to needs, things like rent, groceries, utilities, and transportation. 30% went to wants, which is dining out, entertainment, subscriptions, and so on. And 20% went straight to my financial future, being my savings account. But here's the real tweak. On payday, that 20% was automatically transferred out of my checking account before I ever saw it sitting there. It went into 2 separate accounts, which we'll get to later in this video. But let's make this real with actual numbers and examples. Say your take-home pay after taxes is $4,000 a month. That's a common number for someone earning around $60,000 a year in gross salary. 50% for needs is $2,000, 30% for wants is $1,200, and 20% your savings rate is $800 every single month. Here's the part that mattered most for me. I didn't try to find that $800 at the end of the month. I flipped the order. The 20% moved out of my account the day my paycheck landed before I could spend it on anything else. At first, that adjustment felt uncomfortable, but over time it became my new normal. Humans naturally adjust to whatever resources they consistently have available. That means if you consistently live on what's left after saving, your brain eventually accepts it as your standard lifestyle. Saving stops feeling like a sacrifice. It simply becomes part of how you manage money. And that's my first secret. This next strategy transformed every dollar I saved into a growing army of cash working around the clock, even while I slept. It's willpower versus automation. Remember those separate accounts I mentioned earlier? Here's exactly how I structured it. On payday, an automatic transfer moved that $800 out of my checking account before I ever saw it sitting there. Of that $800, $300 went into a high-yield savings account as my emergency fund, until that fund reached 3 to 6 months of expenses. The remaining $500 went directly into an investment account, which we'll get to in the next step. You might be wondering, why an emergency fund? Because if your car breaks down or you lose your job, you'll be forced to sell investments, or worse, go into debt to cover the gap. The emergency fund isn't separate from your $100,000 goal. It's the insurance policy that protects it. Using our $4,000 example, if monthly expenses are roughly $2,800, a 6-month emergency fund means a target of $16,800. At $300 a month, that fund is fully built in 56 months. But here's the key. You don't wait that long to start making money. You build it in parallel with investing. And once you've reached that 16K, that entire $800 can redirect into investing. In the next section, we're going to talk about the habit that accelerated my progress more than anything else. This is the step that transformed my money into real wealth, and it's the one most people skip out of fear or confusion. But you have to stay and listen for the twist at the end. I promise you it's worth it. Let's run the actual numbers, because this is where the strategy proves itself. The historical average annual return of the S&P 500 has been roughly 10% before inflation. Picture someone investing $500 every single month into an index fund, earning that conservative 10% annual return, compounding monthly. After 1 year, they'd have roughly $6,300, which barely feels different from just saving it in cash. But after 5 years, the math shifts, landing around $39,000. After 10 years, the account reaches approximately $86,500. Your portfolio could be worth over $100,000. Now here's the twist. You definitely don't want to wait an entire 10 years just to make your first 100K. It means creating opportunities to earn beyond your primary paycheck. People assume their employer is responsible for making them wealthy. But your employer has one job: to pay you for the work you do. Building wealth is your responsibility. That doesn't mean you need to work 3 jobs or sacrifice every weekend like you're told by other finance gurus. Just aim for one more additional source of income. For example, start selling secondhand clothes on Vinted or whatnot from your bedroom. Even an extra $300 to $500 per month can dramatically accelerate your journey to $100,000. Let's do the math. You earn an extra $500 each month and invest it instead of spending it. Over a period of 5 years, you've contributed almost $80,000. That's compound interest, doing exactly what it's mathematically designed to do. The strategy isn't picking the right stock or timing the market. The strategy is feeding the account every single month and getting out of its way. In my own case, I didn't earn $60,000 a year the whole time. My income grew, and every time it did, I increased my savings and investment rate before I increased my lifestyle. That one habit alone can cut years off your timeline. If you strip away all the strategies, calculations, and financial techniques, reaching $100,000 ultimately comes down to one thing: identity. Because most people try to build wealth while still thinking like someone who is broke. They treat saving like a temporary challenge instead of a permanent system. They invest when it feels convenient instead of automatic. They think of money as something to spend first and manage later. But people who reach 6 figures consistently think differently. They ask one simple question before every financial decision: does this move me closer to financial freedom or further away from it? That one question changes everything, because suddenly every purchase has a consequence, every habit has a direction, every dollar has a job, and your financial life stops being random. It becomes intentional. Before you go, try this yourself. Here are the 3 mistakes to avoid. Mistake 1, waiting for a big enough amount before starting to invest. $500 a month beats $0 a month for 10 years every single time. Mistake 2, stopping contributions during a market downturn. Market dips are when index fund shares get bought at a discount, not a signal to pause. Mistake 3, treating the 20% savings rate as optional instead of automatic. The moment it requires a decision every month, it eventually gets skipped. Avoid those 3 things, and the math from this video does almost all of the remaining work on its own. So here's the entire strategy compressed into 4 steps. Budget 20% of your income toward your future. Automate that transfer so it happens without you. Build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund first. Then invest the rest consistently into low-cost index funds and let compound interest do the heavy lifting. That's it. That's genuinely the whole strategy. No secret stock pick, no risky side bet, just consistent percentages applied over a long enough timeline. If you want to see exactly how long this would take for your specific income, drop your monthly savings amount in the comments and I'll help you run the numbers. And if this breakdown actually helped you see the math clearly, subscribe, because the next video covers the second strategy on how I used my 100K to become a millionaire. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.